A couple weeks ago, I put out a video talking about the Resident Evil 2 remake, mostly focusing on aspects about it I personally found inferior to the original. I still liked the game, I just thought 98 RE2 did some things better. The reception to that video was a bit mixed. Some people agreed with my points, some respectfully disagreed, and others thought that I should shut my mouth and/or jump off a cliff. It was a somewhat contentious video, to say the least. I predicted there would be some pushback when I decided to focus more on criticisms than merits, but I didn't expect anywhere near the level of vitriol that was thrown my way. Going through the comments turned into kind of a fascinating social experiment. Sure, there was plenty of civil discussion and essay-long breakdowns of how I was wrong, but there were also plenty of assumptions, misrepresentations of what I said, and good old-fashioned insults. So much so, in fact, that I felt the need to respond in some way. I went back and forth on whether doing a video like this was even a good idea. After all, if someone watched the RE2 video and concluded I'm a moron that no one should ever take seriously ever again, I highly doubt I'm going to change their mind. And I'm sure I'll be accused of stirring up drama for views, even though one look at the content on my channel should disprove that I'm about that. But there are only so many times you can read the same incorrect things over and over before you feel like you have to say something, and that's what I'm going to do here. I went through a number of comments and picked out some to respond to, most of which aren't positive, which should give me the opportunity to either rebut misinformation or clarify things that I originally said, though I can't promise I'll be covering everything. Apologies up front if this whole thing ends up being kinda all over the place. Let's jump in. First comment we'll start with, looks like you're trying too hard to find shit to complain about and trying way too hard to be different opinion-wise. Not really. While some might think I'm reaching, these are just genuine thoughts I had while playing the game. I didn't sit down and stare at scenes and try to find things to complain about, I just had my own opinions and decided to share them. I acknowledge in the video itself that I chose to focus more on the negatives of the remake because pretty much every other RE2 video I saw consisted of mostly blind praise, and so I wanted to take a different direction. I simply felt spending a lot of time talking about the positives would have been mostly redundant, that's all. I didn't set out to cause drama, trust me, I'd much rather have people like my content rather than bombard it with negative feedback. Clickbait video, stay away. The term clickbait gets thrown around a lot on contentious videos, but it does not apply here. The title isn't sensational or misleading, it tells you exactly what the video is going to be about, and the content of the video matches that expectation. If the title were something more along the lines of Resident Evil 2, terrible, worst game in the series, or RE2, Claire's dark secret revealed, gone sexual, then you'd have a case, but yeah, as it stands, not clickbait. Here's a collection of comments that all express the same point. I stopped video at RE4 being top of the list. This dude said RE4 is one of the best games ever made. Automatic dislike. RE2 is your top favorite of the originals and your number one spot is taken by RE4. There is no point in continuing watching your video. I stopped listening once this guy praised RE4. Man, a minute in and you lost me at RE4 as a goat. RE4 is trash. Like, how do you hate RE6 but like 4? They're both Michael Bay BS. Okay, serious question. When did everyone decide to hate Resident Evil 4? Because I didn't get the memo on that. Yeah, I praise RE4 and consider it one of the best games ever made because it's awesome. It was awesome when it first came out and remains awesome all these years later, which is why I've played it countless times across 4 or 5 different platforms. I can understand the argument that its action-oriented direction and subsequent success led Capcom down a path that ultimately led to crap like this, but that doesn't in any way detract from the quality of 4. And to the last comment that likened RE4 to RE6 as if both experiences are in any way similar, that's like saying Die Hard and A Good Day to Die Hard are the same since they're both action movies. No, one is a top-tier classic, and the other is dog shit. My god, you voice is awful. Yeah, I know my voice sucks. Unfortunately, it's what puberty left me with. It'd be nice if I sounded more like Sam Elliott, but I'm forced to play with the hand I was dealt. Shove your bitching up your ass. This motherfucker doesn't even sound old enough to play the original when it came out. F***ing baby. I might not sound like it, but I'm actually 28 years old. I played the very first Resident Evil at a friend's house as a kid, and Resident Evil 2 was the first series entry I owned myself back when it was new. So yeah, I did in fact play the original when it was new. Also, goo goo gaga. One thing I didn't like from the RE2 remake, the campaign is short just like Resident Evil 7. I don't know, but it feels so short. I disagree, I think each campaign is a solid length. Even if you don't factor in the second run stuff, you're still looking at an average of 6 hours or so for Claire and Leon each, which I think is plenty of value on its own. Same goes for RE7, which was something like 8 hours long. More than enough, in my opinion. Here's another few comments that all basically relate to the same thing. I'm sorry, but who the fails the crane boss fight 6 to 12 times? It's like video game logic 101. Oh, a crane. Guess I gotta stun him and use it to kill him. Dude took 6 tries to beat Birkin with the crane. Only took me 2. Sounds to me that this guy just sucks at the game, lol. I can't get past 8 minutes after you said that fighting Birkin on the crane was hard. It's not hard, at all. This has to be the biggest point people called me on. Yes, I died on the crane fight 6 times the first time I did it. I'm sure you've never stumbled on a boss fight before, right? After talking with some friends and reading comments, I know I'm not the only one who screwed up on this fight. In regards to my criticisms, I said it wasn't immediately clear where the safe zone from the metal container was, and I should have explained this differently. Yes, when you first arrive on the platform, the box is sitting there indicating where it's going to end up. But in the time it takes for it to swing away and swing all the way back, all while you're running around on a tiny platform avoiding and/or shooting at a giant death monster trying to rip you apart, it ceases to be clear anymore. 1 or 2 metal containers directly to the face quickly fills you in again, but all of my deaths after that were from Birkin grabbing me before I could get out of the way. Call it bad luck or poor planning on my part, but that's how it went down, and like I said in the video, I never died on this fight again after my first encounter. I'm sure plenty of you will still think I suck and need to get good, which, fair enough, but I stand by my assessment that this particular fight isn't designed all that great and is one of the least fun parts of the game. And I never said the bosses were hard. I said they were tedious, and the crane fight was frustrating because of the trial and error, but that doesn't translate to difficulty. The fights are not in any way hard, they're just overly long and boring. And one extra comment related to that fight. It doesn't take 2 hits, you dumb f***. If you do enough damage, you can kill Birkin with 1 crane swing. But if you don't do enough damage, it does take 2 hits. So, I'm still right. More comments about the boss fights. Bullet sponges. Did you know you have to aim for the weak points, aka the big orange glowy eyes? You weren't shooting the weak points of the bosses. Boss fights are too long and use up too much ammo. Shoots the boss all over the place instead of its weak spot. It seems that some of you missed the footage where I was clearly aiming and shooting at boss weak points. And for most of the time I wasn't, you may notice that something is missing. Yeah, the big glowy eyeball isn't there. Now, when you play a lot of games and a boss isn't showing its obvious weak point, you have one of 2 instincts. You either think, I need to wait for the big glowy eye to show itself, or you think, I need to do enough damage in order to make the glowy eye come back. Clearly, I went with option B, and while that may have been the incorrect choice, I don't think it was a crazy assumption for me to make. And the last comment relating to boss fights? You complaining about the length and how long they are is because you have so much ammo and are doing well. The game has adaptive difficulty. The better you do, the less resources the game gives you and juices your bullets. The adaptive difficulty is meant to feel like a cinematic movie, where the last bullet is the killing blow or when you're down on your luck. Adaptive difficulty in general is a design choice that I'm not a fan of, and I can't really think of many examples where its implementation made a game better. Maybe God Hand can be argued as a good use of adaptive difficulty, but that's because it has an on-screen meter that clearly communicates how tough things are supposed to be. In my humble opinion, if I'm playing smart, saving up my supplies, and not dying a lot, then I don't think I should be punished for that. If what this comment says is true, it essentially means that my reward for doing well is more tedium, and I for one think that's a sucky trade-off. Are you sure you're not just blinded by nostalgia? In Before Blocky Faces in original RE2 looks better than remake. Sure, I can admit that nostalgia is playing a part in my feelings. Funnily enough, I actually had a line in my script at the end of the personality section where I acknowledged this point. I even recorded the line and put it in during the editing process, but I thought it messed with the flow of the video, and so I ultimately ended up removing it. I guess that was the wrong call, because maybe it would have cushioned against some of the hate. I always assumed Leon A. Claire B was the canon scenario pairing because of which side of the car they were on. Actually, depending on which character's A scenario you start with, the police car they're driving in will crash differently, so the correct character can get out on the correct side. It's a really neat detail I've always appreciated that quite a few people seem to miss. And yes, the remake also included this, so credit where credit is due. You forgot that the tyrant in the remake makes no sense anymore. I thought this too at first. In the original RE2, Mr. X is introduced in a cutscene which pretty much tells you all you need to know about why he's there. Sure, you have to infer some things, but given the context of his arrival, they're not hard to figure out. In the remake, he just kinda shows up out of nowhere, and it's never explained in the plot who or what he is. But there's actually a note inside of Ben's cell that shines light on Mr. X and what his mission is, so technically, it is explained. Lol, I didn't find it scary at all. Wow, pretentious much? Why is that pretentious? It's just how I felt. The game didn't really creep me out at all, aside from maybe a jump or two in the early goings when a zombie I thought was dead would suddenly grab at me. There's something very important about me that you have to understand. I am a massive pansy when it comes to horror. I don't see scary movies, I don't watch scary TV shows, and there are indie games I'll never touch because they tend to contain some really scarring stuff. But even so, I still feel drawn to horror games from time to time, and some of them have terrified me. Fear, Condemned Criminal Origins, Silent Hill 2 and 3, Resident Evil 7, Amnesia: The Dark Descent, Barbie Dreamhouse Party, real spooky shit. But the RE2 remake just didn't get me. It might be because of my familiarity with the original, but yeah, it is what it is. You forgot how Sherry gets over her parents' death so quickly she wants to be adopted by Leon and Claire by the end. That's just plain weird. Yeah, it is. I didn't really like the ending in general. They make jokes about how Leon and Claire should get together, then a trucker drives by, flipping them off while the group makes no effort to stop him, even though I'm pretty sure he's driving toward the zombie-infested city they just escaped from. Then Sherry declares that the two should adopt her, and how they should get her a dog because her mother, the same woman she witnessed die like 20 minutes ago, wouldn't let her have one. It's pretty jarring, tonally speaking, and it just doesn't really work for me. I guess add that to the list of things I think the original does better. You bitches complaining you want an entire different campaign. Yeah, enjoy waiting another 1 to 2 years then, dumb f***s. They were different enough in an excellent game. Sure, the game we got was pretty good as it is, but I'd happily wait longer for an improved experience that delivers everything that the original had. You didn't even play the game on hardcore first time around. You're not a true fan. You're like a more whiny, less funny version of Yahtzee. You're not any more or less of a fan of a game depending on what difficulty you play it on. I went through on the standard normal difficulty, which I'm betting most people did. If you prefer to challenge yourself by jumping right in on hard, then good for you, do what makes you happy, but fuck off with that you're not a true fan if you don't play it on the hardest difficulty since I've arbitrarily decided that's important nonsense. Hey, comment guy from a few back, that's what pretentious looks like. I thought everyone who was a true fan of Resident Evil 2 would have gotten the Deluxe Edition without question. Clearly you are not, lol. Really? If there's a more expensive edition of a game, you have to buy it, otherwise you're not a true fan? And here I was, thinking all you had to do to be a fan of something was experience and appreciate it, but silly me, I guess I was mistaken. I guess since you're a true fan of the game and all, you must have gotten the $900 typewriter edition then. How is it that you make a 30-minute video about problems with the remake and did not mention once that they left out entire monster types like the spiders? I didn't even register that creatures from the original were missing. If we're being honest, things like spiders, crows, ivies, giant moth, whatever else, were basically footnotes in the PS1 game. Some were only in a single room or hallway, and most were so easily avoided that they may as well not even have been there. More monster variety in the remake would have been more appreciated, I guess, but the missing ones didn't really bother me. Folk, he is just actual nobody. Who cares about his opinion? Million of more hardcore RE fans out there is praising this masterpiece. This nobody is just a speck of shit on Fly's ass. Just downvote report and close to destroy his view counts. Report me for what? For having an opinion you don't like? I wasn't aware that was against YouTube's TOS. I mean, I know what is and isn't okay according to YouTube changes on a whim these days, but I doubt criticizing RE2 is anywhere in their negative column. Oh, shut up and let others enjoy the game. How does me expressing my thoughts and feelings about a game I must remind everyone I liked, prevent anyone else from enjoying it? Based on the dislikes and the comments I've been reading, it clearly hasn't stopped anyone from doing so. If anything, it's strengthened their resolve. And pro tip to anyone that comments telling me to shut up or shut my mouth, you do realize you're watching a video, right? You literally have the power to make me stop talking with the push of a button. Gets game for free, admits to not even buying a $3 DLC they enjoyed. You don't see the problem here? Maybe you would be more capable of a better critic if you actually paid for it. How pathetic is it to get a $70 game for free, then go, boy, that $3 DLC I didn't even pay for is too much. Yeah, f***ing right, you lucky twat. I get being critical of something, but everyone knows it's tame DLC compared to loot boxes and other trash. Did you even mention how all of the story DLC is free? Probably not. Whether I get a game for free or not doesn't affect my opinion of it. I'm always going to look at what's on offer through the lens of the asking price, even if I didn't pay for it. Though if for some reason you think I need to spend money on something to properly critique it, I did end up gifting the remake to a friend of mine, so I have given Capcom $60 for RE2. Yes, the DLC is tame compared to other shitty business practices. $3 costumes or music tracks aren't anywhere near as bad as gameplay-affecting items, season passes, or loot boxes, but that doesn't mean they're good. They're just less bad. The common cold is way better than cancer, but having a cold still sucks. And I clearly mentioned that the story DLC would be free. However, as it turns out, that free DLC wasn't actually story content at all, it was just extra survivor runs. Stuff like that isn't really what I want out of Resident Evil, and it's free, so I'm not going to complain about it much, but I still have to ask, why would you give away this kind of actual gameplay content for free, but charge for even more inconsequential stuff like costumes? The answer is, you shouldn't. This video boils down to not being an exact remake, you don't like spending money on dress-up dolls in a video game, and the fact a woman took charge. You mentioned how that bothered you a lot, it's telling. Things not being exactly the same isn't my issue with the remake. My problem is that some of the changes are not improvements. Change isn't automatically good. And having an issue with Claire's action hero attitude is telling? Telling of what? That I'm a sexist or that I hate women? I don't give a fuck what's dangling between her legs. She could be a boy, a girl, an attack helicopter, a pansexual dragon, I don't care. I simply don't feel like this moment is earned. If there was even slight hesitation or a shot of her taking a deep breath, then I wouldn't mind so much. But her ultra-confident, I know exactly what I'm doing, this ends here approach feels forced. Side note, some people corrected me saying that Claire is actually 19 when I said she was a 20-something university student. When you hear 20-something university student, you're probably thinking something along the lines of 20, 21, 22, so her being 19 doesn't change anything at all, but I wanted to point out I'm aware of the correction. And now I'd like to end on what I think is actually a really good comment from someone who doesn't completely agree with me, but also isn't a dick about it. While I don't agree with some of the topics you had brought up, I don't think you deserve the amount of dislikes you're getting. I feel like you explained your criticisms well enough to warrant a well-understanding of where you're coming from. Some love it and some hate it, and that's okay, everyone. It's good to criticize once in a while. We now have 2 Resident Evil 2s, so everyone wins here. Couldn't have said it better myself. At the end of the day, we have 2 quality games to experience, and whichever you prefer is entirely up to you, and there's nothing wrong with liking both. That's where I'll be ending this ultimately pointless response video. Let me end by saying thank you to anyone that took the time to watch my Resident Evil 2 video, and extra thanks to anyone that sat through this one as well. Yes, even if you hate my guts and regard me as an ignorant neckbeard that no one should ever listen to again. At least you gave my alternate opinions a shot, and ultimately, that's all I can ask. Have a good day, everyone. See you in the next video.